What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I'm back with another album review for you guys, and today we are talking about another big album that came out on August 5th, and that is Soulfly with Totem. So yeah, quick brief history lesson about Soulfly. Wow, I sounded like I had a lisp right there. But Soulfly formed right after Max Cavalera and Sepultura had their split in 97, I believe it was. And Soulfly had been going pretty strong since about 1998 with their debut. And they've been everything, starting off with like tribal-inspired nu metal, then to groove metal, and now, in recent years, kind of going more towards like death thrash, but still retaining a little bit of the old school Soulfly vibe with the grooves here and there. But in recent times, they have really gone brutal with their sound and gotten heavier and more gnarly and aggressive. So how does Totem stack up? Well, no pun intended, because you do stack totems. But we kick things off with Superstition, which starts off with a cool tribal beginning before some heavy thrash is unleashed into your ears. The verses are short, sweet, to the point, and they do not mess around. The pre-choruses and the choruses get downright into like groovy death metal territory, and there is quite a bit of like an old school death metal vibe on a lot of these tracks. The bridge even gets a little bit punky before a kind of doomy break comes in with some cool atmosphere, and then we get a ripping lead to just come in and shred your face off before you conclude the song with a big chugging riff and more tribal beats. And real quick to mention, prepare to hear me say leads a lot in this review, because the lead work was done by the same guy who produced this album, Arthur Risk, who is also the guitarist of Eternal Champion and has done production work for Power Trip. He did the new Creator album, Temple of Void, among so many other bands in recent times. He's kind of become like the new go-to guy for production here in the States, at least, and does a fantastic job on the production, which I'll talk more when we get to the end. Scouring the Vial, big scream leading to a cool lead right out of the gate. Big breakdown, build-up moment leading into the verses where those riffs continue to chug and groove. The choruses kind of even get a little bit almost hardcore at times with the way it grooves and the way it kind of has, well, maybe not so much hardcore, but again, more of like that old school death metal vibe. And we even get an old school death metal legend as John Tardy from Obituary comes in on guest vocals on this track. First time that Max and John have done a track together since Stronger Than Hate on the Sepultura album Beneath the Remains in '89, so quite a while. But the following verses get very thrashy once again, and the lead that follows is more like quick-fire shredding perfection. Filth upon filth, big groove riff right out of the gate, but also with some shred that just flies into your ass so swiftly. And it doesn't stop as that groove riff continues into the verses. The choruses, however, get into this like Obituary or even a Celtic Frost groove, which I really, really liked. And the lead we get that follows carries a little bit more of an atmospheric melody on top, which, unlike most of the leads on the album, this one definitely stood out more because it's more melodic and atmospheric. Big guitar squeal to lead us into a quick breakdown before things speed up a little bit, and then another lead that starts off chaotic, kind of like a Slayer lead, then it gets into more shred once again. Rotten Pain, blast beats and brutal riffing that kind of gives off that more of those old school death metal vibes, more in the sense of early Morbid Angel, like Altars of Madness era Morbid Angel, definitely gave off that type of influence, followed by more tribal moments. Like it's not like plastered all throughout the album where you get constant tribal stuff. They use it more or less to kind of build atmosphere in the background. And followed after those tribal moments, it unleashes into more thrash through the verses, gruesome grooves in the choruses, wild shredding quick-fire lead to just punch you right in the penis, guitar chaos with even more lead work following the second chorus, and this lead kind of mixes in dive bombs, shred, and technicality, Cool start and stop riff, while the thrash beats are on top of that to bring us to the end of the song. The Damage Done, which was, I think, the second longest track of the album. It was about 5.5 minutes. And this song, or am I mistaken? No, The Damage Done was only 4 minutes. I'm thinking of the next song being the second longest. But I digress. But The Damage Done kind of starts off a little bit doomy at first, as the drums are more or less subdued. The guitars get into like a doomy chug, and that doom chug continues through the verses. The choruses bring in more double bass drum work, while the riff gets a little bit sped up to change the dynamics a little bit. After the second chorus, we get into more of like that old school death metal or hardcore kind of vibe, but with more shredding lead work coming in, and even some tapping is going on, so Arthur Risk is definitely throwing it down on these leads even further. Killer breakdown in the bridge, followed by another lead with shred and dive bombs combined, and then it concludes with a little bit more of a thrashy vibe before you get into yet another ripping lead. Like, there was at least 3 leads in 4 minutes on this track. Now we get to the second longest track of the album, the title track, Totem. Cool drum patterns to begin, and then it's followed by some classic Sepultura type riffs, like from Arise, and even maybe a little bit of Chaos AD. And those riffs continue through the verses. The choruses get chuggy and groovy, followed by some more cool breakdowns and more fantastic leads. Killer drum solo in the middle of the song, which was really cool, and given that I'm a drummer, I really, really loved hearing this drum solo by Zion, Max's son, coming in, just putting on a stellar performance on the drums throughout this entire album. Then it gets into a thrashy onslaught that follows. More cool lead work, and this time it's more of like melodic shred, almost like an Alex Skolnick lead to some extent. Then you get to the very end where it suddenly turns into like a slam riff, like it just slams and it makes you want to punch somebody right in the jaw. And that slam even slows down further at the very end to just chug your balls down to the pipes. That didn't make any sense, but who gives a shit? This fucking part was just badass to end this track. Then you follow that up with the track Ancestors. Vicious riff right away, and into the verses we go with that riff. More of those cool, like, atmospheric tribal moments in the background. The choruses stay groovy for the most part. Cool melodic lead that immediately comes afterwards before the second verse. Cool drum build up in the bridge with some dark chanting going on. And then you get into another cool breakdown, and you end the track with more, I guess you would say, yeah, clean guitars. You end off with like a clean guitar part, and that leads us into Ecstasy of Gold. And initially when I saw the song title, I'm thinking, are they going to do their own version of that classic song? But no, it was actually something completely different. Starts off very eerie, then it unleashes into more of those like Morbid Angel inspired riffs. Or not the choruses, the verses get back to being thrashy, but there's some like evil and dark tremolo picking riffs going on. The choruses get back to that old school death metal or even hardcore vibe, whichever you describe it, it doesn't matter. Cool cymbal accents are going on, while another tasty lead comes flying high again. Yet another cool breakdown, as it has more of those old Morbid Angel vibes. Then you get into like an almost somber melodic lead towards the end of the track, which was really unique. Then we get to Soulfly 12, which was the shortest song of the album at a little over 2.5 minutes, and it's an instrumental clip. And it's pretty much all like atmospheric, like clean guitars with some cool cymbal accents and some playing on the edge of the snare. And it almost feels like a tranquil, euphoric track. Like it's a good track to kind of relax to while relaxing on the beach or on the mountainside. It's like at one with nature. And like the drums kind of keep building up more atmosphere, and even some keyboards come in as well towards the end, which brings us to the closer, Spirit Animal, which was 9.5 minutes. And throughout much of the beginning, it's more of like an ambient atmosphere to give off like a creepy vibe. Then suddenly out of nowhere, you get big guitars, double bass to build tension, then into a tribal groove with some like almost tribal folk progressions in the background, and then the riff that follows kind of obituary-ish once again. And that obituary vibe continues as even that riff slows down a bit. And that's throughout pretty much like the first couple of minutes of this track, and even in the background you get some like tribal chanting to set a mood. Then things suddenly stop before the verses come in with more of like that hardcore vibe, and with guest vocals by another one of Max's kids, Richie Cavalera, coming in. And then the choruses brings in more killer grooves with excellent drum patterns. After the second chorus, you get another excellent lead, but it also has great melody and shred, again bringing that like Alex Skolnick influence. And this lead was actually performed by Chris Olsch from Power Trip and Mammoth Grinder, and he's a hell of a musician. Like, he's a great drummer in Power Trip, but also a great guitarist as well in Mammoth Grinder, and he shows what he can bring to the table. Afterwards, into a breakdown we go, and then the mood gets much more murky after that. After the breakdown and things are slowing down, and then more atmosphere is coming in, and it puts you in like almost like a psychedelic dreamscape state of mind, with some trippy vocals at the end to kind of give off more of that psychedelic dreamscape sensibility. So yeah, it's like, this was a unique track because it starts off with like creepy atmosphere, then you get into like dun 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 riffs, and then into like an obituary part, then it gets a bit hardcore, groovy, melodic, and then you end off with like almost like a psychedelic dream trip, almost. So, definitely trying to cram a lot within 9.5 minutes and make it as unique as possible. But overall, and quickly going back to what I was going to say about the production, with Arthur Risk's production, I've been loving his production style. It's like he's able to make everything still sound modern, but with an old school approach. Like, it's drenched in reverb, and gives off, like, again, that old school vibe. Like, let's just go old school and just have a field day with the production. So overall, musically speaking, like, there's so much going on here. There's thrash, there's old school death metal, there's groove, some tribal moments, and great melodies here and there. It's just, there's a lot going for this album, and Max is the man when it does come to writing some killer riffs that can fit in almost any genre of metal. Like, he's a metalhead forever, essentially. He's kind of like, he's one of the biggest, no pun intended, spirit animals of metal. And who doesn't love Max Cavalera? I can't think of anybody who hates him. That's just me. And one quick note that I wanted to bring up for those who aren't aware, because Max is good friends with my good friends, the Thralls of Metal, Nick, John, Ryan, Josh, and Joe, Max, being as cool of a dude as he is, thanked Thralls of Metal in the liner notes on this album, and I can't wait to actually pick up a copy of this album and read the liner notes and just to see, like, oh, how he thanked my good buddies. But overall, this is a fantastic album. I can't think of anything to complain about this album. Like, this album is phenomenal. Not gonna say it's perfect, because I just like other albums from this year more, but I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10. Like, holy shit. And full disclosure, this is the first full Soulfly album I've heard. Like, I've heard songs from other albums, like a few from each album, and I liked what I heard for the most part. But as far as like a full-on experience with Soulfly, I'd say for those who were like me that never really gave Soulfly like a 100% chance, this actually would be a really good place to start, because you pretty much get extreme metal galore on this album, and I absolutely loved it. 9.5 out of 10. This could end up being on my album of the year list with more subsequent listens. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts on this album? Let me know in the comments section below. And until next time, horns high. See you guys soon. Well, after we got done eating, we're on our car ride, and look at this fucking shit.
Look at this bus! Where are you going, sir? I rode the bus here when I was little, and the bus route doesn't even go up this road. It's supposed to go around. What are you doing, sir? Big doors, small doors. You want to buy a door? We'll sell you a door. We only sell doors. We're Door Incorporated. We only sell doors. What the fuck has my life come to? I'm never gonna live it down because Johnny Benson has ruined me. Financially, mentally, physically. Johnny Benson, dude. If you're out there, Johnny, this one's for you.